Okay, we're live, Matt. How you doing?
Doing well. Doing well. I'm excited for Turkey Day this week. No, I'm excited that we're chatting early as well to get. There's all sorts of news that's happening. So as always,
yeah, another big week for prediction markets. I don't know, man. I don't know if it's gonna just be like this from here on out. Prediction markets, or are we in the the honeymoon phase of this stuff kind of starting to gain a little bit of mainstream adoption? I'll pull up our weekly volume and we can take a peek at that. First, maybe I should enter the pod.
Yeah, let's do it.
Episode 10, Matt?
No, yeah, it's episode 10. Nice. I just realized that.
Oh no, cool. Double digits of 3 markets, guys. Every week, Matthew and I come together. We talk Polymarket, market analysis, Kalshi market analysis, prediction market industry news, throw in some interviews with builders in the ecosystem, folks building tooling for prediction market traders or those building the platforms themselves, and then sprinkle in a little bit of kind of market theory around wisdom of the crowds and prediction markets and just really following the evolution of this thing. Yeah, let me grab those numbers. We are.
Well, you get those numbers. Oh, go for it.
We're live now, but for folks who prefer it, we will be chopping up every episode into kind of a briefer, VOD that you can catch on the YouTube at 3 Markets. Here's our weekly volume numbers. Can you see this, Matt?
I can see it, yeah. We might need to zoom in for our...
Absolutely. Let's see if I can pull that off. So we were live just a few days ago. So it's possible that a ton hasn't changed here. Although this data is more recent of just the last 4 hours. And I think what we observed last week was like the volume on Opinion Market, which is Binance's prediction market platform, had eclipsed both Kalshi and Polymarket. And I think for so many of us kind of following the space, there's always just been these 2 juggernauts. It's Coke and Pepsi, Kalshi and Polymarket, duking it out on Twitter, some friendly competition, certainly. And then kind of out of nowhere, here comes Opinion Labs, which we're going to eventually do a deeper dive into this. But interestingly, they're still kind of just doing a ton of volume. I mean, close to $1 billion in volume on the week. Kalshi, though, taking the lead this week at about 1.15 billion in volume. Polymarket just about at $1 billion in volume. But the big picture is kind of, things are not slowing down, right?
Can I make a comparison to crypto markets? I feel like when for seeing a lot of the dexes come around, seeing like Uniswap and Sushi Swap, for those who remember. It's crazy to say for those who remember. You'd think Sushi Swap was going to stick around. But anyways, Pancake Swap was one of the dexes that just kind of existed somewhere. And I don't know about you, but for me, like I knew nothing about it until all of a sudden it just came out of nowhere. And now there's like a ton of volume on it. But because it's mostly catered towards like non-US audiences, I just didn't know anything about it. And I feel like Opinion might be in the same spot here. Hey Adi, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. Appreciate having you. But yeah, Opinion kind of reminds me of that a little bit with like Pancake Swap. So
okay. I was like, what is Matt talking about? We got Adi.
Dude, you gotta have your eyes on the chat like a hawk, man.
This is like one of our top 5 dream guests. So certainly we'll get him on the stream at some point. And shout out Audie's pod.
Big day.
Sorry, what?
Thanksgiving came early.
Thanksgiving came early. Shout out Audie's pod on the Novig network there. I am embarrassingly forgetting the name of it. Let me grab that. Audie's pod is 50 Cent Dollars, of course. How could I forget? Best name for a newsletter and a podcast in the biz. Okay, let's dive into things. Matt, what is your first topic today?
Yeah, so my first topic was going to be, I was going to actually say this for last, but I was going to mention Kalshi and them losing within Nevada. Actually, let me pull up a few tweets here for a second. Wow, fake fan, I know. Let's see here. Let me just share my window. Can you see this? Yes, you can. Alrighty, so Dustin tweeting the possibility of maximum
prediction market hater. Just kidding, we love him.
Yeah, the possibility of maximum chaos for prediction markets before Thanksgiving. There's apparently some chance that Nevada will start a criminal prosecution against Kalshi from Kalshi's emergency motion after losing in court today. There was a Bloomberg article that was posted recently that a federal judge in Las Vegas dealt a blow to Kalshi's sports betting business. As a quick summary for some of the folks who haven't been keeping up with this, or actually, you know what? I won't give the summary. I could actually look at Dustin's blog, Event Horizon, that kind of breaks down some of this. So Nevada had officially sent a cease and desist letter to Kalshi. Kalshi and others sued the state in federal court. Yes. One moment. Kalshi and others sued the state in federal court. Kalshi initially won a preliminary injunction against the state. Crypto.com sued Nevada, but lost its bid for preliminary injunction. And after the ruling, Nevada asked the judge to dissolve the preliminary injunction he granted to Kalshi. So right now things are kind of in limbo. Lots of chaos that's happening here, at least within this case. And to give another rough summary, that Nevada isn't taking too kindly to how Kalshi is operating within the state. And I don't know, it's kind of a interesting series of events that's happening with sports and prediction markets. I know there was a period in time, I think in the first couple episodes that we had, Josiah, where we couldn't stop talking about sports, even though most of our interest was in other things such as politics. So I don't know, I'm curious to hear your take on that. We actually were just talking about this hours before without having caught up on the recent news.
Yeah. I think the episode we should bring Audie on for will be our end of year predictions about prediction markets, right? And I think that's where this squarely fits. Is it's likely that in 2026 we will get some clarity around a ton of these states suing the different platforms. I'm not even trying to keep up with it anymore because it's 25 states or something are suing them. And the thing that you and I touched on privately, Matt, in our regular calls where we get into this kind of stuff was this week's news that FanDuel and DraftKings are leaving the American Gaming Association. And I think this is relevant in the sense that okay, here's the state of Nevada now suing. I think DraftKings themselves was suing or had some sort of, or maybe it was just that the state of Massachusetts where they're based was also previously suing around specifically sports prediction markets. And I do think there's a big question of whether or not sports fits into a different category than other kinds of prediction markets. But the point being the ship is kind of sailing anyways, right? Like now FanDuel and DraftKings, the largest, traditional TradFi, if you will, sports betting platforms, have adopted prediction markets. So they're getting on the train, the ship, because they realize it's leaving the port. And it's almost just a question of like, will it even matter by the time these lawsuits play out? I almost just think things are moving quicker than regulatory clarity can come. And these platforms, I mean, now they're literally leaving their industry group, the American Gaming Association, over this issue.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be, I don't know, some might see it as like I don't want to be dramatic and say like a death sentence or anything, but like prediction markets have been on the rise even before the adoption of having sports markets. So I'm not too worried about like what might play out within here. Selfishly, I don't participate in as many sports markets. And I used to sports bet within like traditional sports books, but I don't have an edge. It's just purely for entertainment. So even though, regardless of how this shakes out, I think we'll be okay in the long run. But yeah, just wanted to share that quick bit of news. Josiah, do you have what do you got?
Yeah, let's get into, here's a fun one for you. If we return to one of my favorite markets, this is becoming a recurring theme on the Three Markets pod, so we won't spend too much time on this one this time, but the number one searched person on Google this year, and there's a host of markets around this. There's now a market for the number one searched athlete, number two searched person, top 5 searched people, number 1 searched movie, all of this riding on the Google Trends team's, year in search kind of report that they put out at the end of the year. And I always call this out when we talk about this market, so I'll just mention it one more time. The market resolves based on Google Trends' identified number 1 person, number 1 whatever, which is based on year over year growth in volume, not kind of nominal raw search volume for the year. So the title I do think is a little bit misleading. Some people will just read number 1 searched person. And I'll just bring this up to chat about something we talked a little bit about last week. Let's see here. I'm just trying to decide, was it the Kalshi market or the Polymarket? We'll look at the Polymarket. So I pointed out last week that, I looked to publicly available Wikipedia page views as sort of proxy data for Google search volume. And this is because Google Trends itself normalizes data in a way that makes it kind of difficult to understand the year over year growth. And we looked last week at volume for Mikey Madison, which spiked enormously when Anora won some award earlier in the year. And I told you I had a pretty big position on the yes for Mikey Madison being the most searched actor on Google this year, simply because there was very low baseline sort of search volume for her in previous years, and then this huge spike earlier in the year. And then we observed that Dharmendra, a Indian actor and director, both, I believe, had sort of popped up on the markets as an added outcome, and had, when we looked at his data, there was an enormous spike, and it was the result of a fake news story about his death that had gone kind of viral in India and worldwide as well. And just generally deaths and passings tend to get a ton of search volume. I mean, I observed this when I was doing research on the number 1 searched person on Google market, like Charlie Kirk, around the time of his assassination. Just the search volume was, I think it was even higher than the Pope, right? So it wasn't a surprise that his search volume had sort of really peaked. And he entered this market last week as a result of that, at trading at like a 50 to 60% likelihood of being the most searched actor, because this story had gone kind of viral. And then I think it had been conclusively decided that it was fake. Well, the news this week, which has caused him to plummet since we spoke about this last, from 60% to just about 3.9 or 4%, is that he has in fact passed away. And I think it's the case that there was a fake news story, and then it's simply is close enough to what is now the real news story, and that would recategorize in Google Trends, report Dharmendra from being a most searched actor/actress to instead fitting the category of passings. They have an entire category for people who passed this year. So the thought is, there's still an enormous amount of search volume for this individual, but he won't be categorized in the number 1 searched actor in that report. Here's where it gets tricky, though, right? I'll just take us to the Google Trends year in search. Share this tab. We'll go over to the actual year in search so that we're looking at the 2024 report. And then I will take us all the way down to their data methodology. We've been here many times before. What must be observed is that at least for last year, the year in search lists was using data sourced from January 1st, 2024 to November 23rd, 2024. If I search up the individual that we are talking about and share this tab instead, you'll see the individual passed away on November 24th, 2025. So my thought is it's possible that this individual actually passed away after or I guess it's a bit of a toss-up, isn't it? It's like we know that there's a ton of search volume for this individual. And if this individual is seen by the Google Trends team as fitting the category of actor or actress, then I do think they will be the number one or number two most searched person in that category. If the team instead categorizes this person as passings, then I would have to look at the data for that. It would be hard to beat the Charlie Kirk passing in terms of search volume. But the challenge being, they have a cutoff date of November 23rd. The person passed on the 24th. There's still a ton of search volume, but have they made an editorial decision to, in which category the individual belongs on the 23rd strictly? It all gets a little bit, a little bit hazy. But it does make me think that there is a chance that Dharmendra will still be categorized in the actor-actress category, and that Dharmendra is therefore probably quite underpriced at 4%.
Sure. I guess the one way to check that is that you can see like if in previous years in search, if anyone has passed away like after that period, and if they were like shortly after, and if there's anything that like if they were categorized as part of passings or something else, is probably one way to check. But
right. No, you're right. It would be good now at this point to go back and look at past years and see if there was anyone who showed up, in a living person category, but had passed away after the point at which they cut off the trends team sort of, I guess finalized the report.
We have someone who Adrian asked, is this actually live?
Adrian, we are so live. We're so live. I mean, which market can we take you into to prove that fact? Yeah, okay. We don't have to spend the entire episode on I'm high conviction on these Google.
No, I'm glad you bring it up. It's good that you talk about it each time because I feel like it's one of the markets. I think that one of the first markets that you've done like a really like deep dive into since we've started this, and I think it's pretty cool showing like the some of the findings that you have. I remember when you first texted me about some of the data sources that you found that were like, oh, I think these are good proxies for this, and I was like, oh, that's got to be it. So
and then, yes, and if folks dig back through our Twitter history, we have a pretty good thread, I think, outlining the methodology there, and it leads me to believe still that the Pope is underpriced as being the number one search person on Google this year. I mean, the Pope is still sitting at 38%. And it's just been bouncing between 35 and 40%. I don't know. I kind of already have my bags packed for this one. The report comes out in early or mid-December. It kind of changes every year. So certainly we'll do some retro coverage.
Yeah, definitely. Also, Adrian, appreciate the kind words. I really, really appreciate it. But yeah, I think I'm excited for that coverage because I think that will give us a lot of learnings regardless of the outcome of maybe us doing more of that, like more frequently, like throughout the year, to kind of showcase, even though we like yapping, we could predict too. We can, we'll showcase some of our prediction skills. I'll bust out some of my data science chops. But cool.
Okay.
Should we move on to the next topic?
Yeah. Should we talk about the Pentagon Pizza Watch?
Ooh, yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, and I'll just turn off tab audio here. The Pentagon Pizza Watch is like an OG open source intelligence heuristic, if you will, right? I think I did a little bit of digging, Matt, and this was first brought up by like a journalist in like the 80s who observed that for all of these different conflicts, see if I've got it here. Check my notes.
Oh, really? It was the 80s? I didn't realize it was that long. I thought it was like a very recent thing. This is all very new to me. I think.
Yeah. No, so it's recently kind of making a comeback, if you will. But I guess what it is the Frank Meeks era, the 90s. Frank Meeks, was a Domino Pizza franchise owner who operated 45 stores in the Washington, D.C. area, who first observed that spikes in late night pizza orders would skyrocket around, government offices in the, days or weeks, leading up to a global crisis of some kind. So in some sense, his sales spikes predicted the invasion of Panama, the Gulf War. I think that this even happened more recently around the time of like Russia-Ukraine conflict, or different conflicts in the Middle East. And it kind of made the rounds, I think, in the 90s on like, I guess Wolf Blitzer kind of brought it up and pointed to it as just an interesting it was an early journalistic meme, if you will. Let's see here. And then the modern revival, if you will, is that somebody set up some time ago a Twitter account to actually track, pizza orders in real time around the Pentagon. And prediction market traders, perhaps predictably, have now adopted this and taken it really to the next level with this particular project, the Pentagon Pizza Watch. So I'll just take us to pizzaint.watch. The data link compromised at the moment, perhaps because I guess these pizza parlors may be closed. Sorry, I'm sharing the wrong tab, aren't I? Here's pizzaint.watch. So you can see, I mean, they're giving like a DEFCON score. They're literally showing, kind of live data for all of these pizza parlors surrounding the Capitol or surrounding the Pentagon. And more recently have launched Polyglobe, which is, it's in maintenance mode. I'll take us back to their Twitter thread about this. So Polyglobe is like a real-time map of the Russia-Ukraine conflict that actually shows prediction market odds for, the capture of different regions in the conflict in real time. And I don't actually know how I feel about this, Matt. It's a bit Black Mirror-y. Just to see.
I was a bit like, when first seeing this, I was like, this looks a little too much like a video game that like you're playing, some kind of like Age of Empires or kind of like, I don't know. That part felt a little odd, but I think it is interesting, like in terms of like aggregating this information together, and kind of seeing like where some of this stuff maps to. You shared with me a thread recently about, or wasn't too recent, but it was something of them incorporating a certain data source.
Yeah, was it this one?
Yes.
You'll have to explain this one to me because I honestly didn't even really read through the entire thing.
Yeah, definitely. So it looks like what this site, or this project, at least Pentagon Pizza Watch, what they were doing was this was back in like early November. They had integrated with VERS, or they are pulling data from VIRS. I'm forgetting what it actually stands for, but it's a program that's ran by NASA where they have satellites that are monitoring like temperature changes all around the globe. And you could use this data for free. You could actually go to their site and kind of plug in different coordinates and different areas to see if there are any like thermal signatures that happen to be like anomalous within that area.
Is this the right thing?
Yeah, you're on the right site. But if you go to data and tools, I believe they'll have like a little bit like an interactive tool that you should be able to play around with there. If not, we could pull in a link later on and put it in the show notes, but it looks very similar to the globe that was within that tweet. We could actually probably just show that image, and I can kind of explain what's going on within that.
Yeah, let me put this back.
Yeah, so it
looks like this, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you're able to like kind of navigate, and then like within different parts of the globe, you can see like the brightness of whatever thermal signature is there, when it was required, the satellite that it was used, confidence, and like a lot more other features about that. And so it looks like with this thread, what they did was they incorporated that into their kind of like globe watch specifically for markets relating to the U.S. and Venezuela engagement. So, and it seems like what they did on their platform is that for those who like have access to it, I think they have like some kind of like membership system. You're able to see.
They have a token. I think they have a straight up token.
Yeah, and I think it's like token gated. Like you need a token in order to kind of see them mapping the VERS data on top of their map. But I also just want to shout out too that like you can kind of also do this on your own as well if you wanted to kind of like explore what some of this is. There's a lot of like OSINT data sources that are out there that you can use to kind of help with any of the markets that you're participating in. But yeah, this is looks like Polyglobe or their product where they add like a VERS layer on top of that. I think what they have here that maybe VERS doesn't have out of the box is some kind of like anomaly detection. So it's like, okay, typical heat signatures within that area. And this is like a big spike or change in a heat signature within this polygon boundary that they've drawn themselves. Like this narco route Caribbean that's labeled within that image. VERS is not going to have that. That section, it's something that they drew themselves, so that's probably where they're sending off notifications to.
So this like open source intelligence, or I guess so they're using satellite imagery to detect heat signatures, you're saying, and those that does read, it reads wildfires, but it also literally just reads rockets and strikes, like military strikes, and so it's being used, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, by prediction market traders to trade in this market, which is Trump announced his new drug boat strike by. There were a couple related markets to this, I think, just kind of how many drug boat strikes will happen by when, et cetera, which is kind of like this hot war that's evolving between the U.S. and Venezuela, is it?
Yeah, just there's a lot of like drug boats that are going around, and the U.S. has like already engaged with some of them, and there's just some like escalating tensions within there. But what you mentioned earlier was right in that like these satellites will just measure heat signatures, conflicts and missile explosions will generate those heat signatures, and that's what VERS is looking at. And actually, let me share my screen real quick because I actually found the map of what it looks like. I think the tool is actually, or it's called Firms, but you can kind of like navigate around here, click on any of these red dots. I actually use this during the LA wildfires to kind of keep track of like how the fire was spreading. I wasn't using it for prediction market stuff at all, but it's just very helpful to have this information. You can see I click here and I see like this bounded area of like looks like there's like a fire happening on this coast of Mexico, for example. There's all these different latitude and longitude points that show like what kind of heat signatures are being picked up. So there must be a pretty big fire happening here in Mexico. We could look at that later, but you could also do like, different time periods, different views of the world. It's very, feature rich. And yeah, so if you're really interested in learning more about how to, pull heat signatures in different parts of the world, Firms is a great data source for that.
Yeah. I had never heard of this before. You kind of pointed me to it as the the layer on the Pentagon pizza project thing. But what an interesting platform. Yeah, really, really interesting. Because it's a tiny bit relevant, I was going to send you this, which was one of the top comments of the week on Metaculus. So I'm like on Metaculus's mailing list, I think. So I get a weekly digest of the top comments. And for those who don't know, Metaculus is kind of like an OG prediction market / forecasting market thing, but it's entirely reputation based. So you're not really trading real dollars. It's kind of like tournament style or points based, I think. But my understanding is that a lot of the sort of OG experts and analysts have kind of like participated on Metaculus for a very long time. And they do a ton of like interesting, just like data viz of some of the stuff happening. And then the comments can sometimes be a little bit of a gold mine, even for kind of informing, trades that you would make on Kalshi or Polymarket. So the one in particular, if I sort by, I guess, best, it wasn't even this. But I mean, they really, like, the commenters can see here, just do a great job actually outlining their thinking, compared to kind of the slop that you get on Kalshi and Polymarket. I mean, this is an entire Substack of an essay that this guy commented, just completely outlining his case for conflict in Venezuela or not. And this isn't even the one that showed up in the email digest. See if I can find it.
Yeah, and while you're looking for that, also for folks who haven't used Metaculus before, what's interesting is that when you submit a prediction, and hopefully I'm not confusing this with Manifold, but in Metaculus you actually don't just submit like a single point of like, oh, I think this is like a 37% chance of a likelihood of this happening, or this is the exact amount of a thing that I'm trying to predict. You actually give a distribution and like confidence intervals of like, this is kind of like what my like, posterior distribution is for this prediction, and it does its own unique scoring mechanism based off of that, which is really cool. And I also wouldn't be surprised if like later on prediction markets incorporate some kind of advanced mode or something where you can kind of make a prediction like that. But yeah, very great to check out, especially if you want to like get more into the discipline of forecasting and like predicting, and not if you don't want to like give up any capital for stuff. Lots of good conversations here.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that, to be honest with you. I haven't dug deep on Metaculus. I didn't realize that that's how it works, that you're actually giving a confidence interval. Shoot, I wish I could find... Give me one more second. I will find this comment because it pointed to something kind of interesting.
Here, I'll log in with our 3 Markets account right now, and I'll show you what I'll show some folks what the prediction interface might look like. Yeah, so like, what will the highest percentage of overall compute capacity held by a single organization be on January 1st, 2028? You can see the distribution here, and you can add a cumulative or a PDF for probability density function, or a CDF for cumulative distribution function. So if you want to make a prediction, then let me see. I haven't used this in a minute, but you would submit something within here with your distribution. See, I'm a fake user because I can't even make my submission here.
Yeah, at some point it'd be fun to do a deeper dive on Metaculus and find kind of other opportunities where there is kind of like alpha leaks, if you will, on Metaculus, or even look at the accuracy of Metaculus versus the accuracy of some of the leading prediction markets.
Like my posterior would probably be something like this, only because I'm mimicking what everyone else has, and also because my distribution is a little bit flat, a little bit more uniform, because I'm not as confident within my prediction. But that's if I were to predict right now, and if I had to, but I'd rather look at the question and test it out.
Okay, quickly, because I did find the comment. It was this one. I guess this wasn't even the top comment. I guess I just noticed this one because you put me onto this group, the Sentinel Global Risk Watch guys, right? Which is it's like a private newsletter of forecasters, I think, who are like fairly expert and spend pretty much their entire time, I think, literally just kind of analyzing global risks and geopolitical events, et cetera. And they just, I guess this is from yesterday, November 24th, stated that their forecast is a 71% chance that the U.S. military carries out an attack on Bailen territory before 2026, which is considerably higher, I believe, than the current Polymarket or call sheet for this. So a little bit interesting to see see if I can find the actual odds, to see the expert forecast kind of diverge pretty considerably from the prediction markets. Like at the moment, and this is like a fairly high volume market, Polymarket is giving like a 19% chance of U.S. forces in Venezuela by December 31st. Whereas here you have this group, the Sentinel, Global Risks Watch, filled with experts stating as of yesterday that they estimate a 71% chance. Pretty big. And they even do actually, to what you're talking about, Matt, like they've given their range, 85%. Even the bottom end of their range is double what the current Polymarket is. So yeah,
I do think the spread, though, or that distribution, does kind of like speak to a bit of that uncertainty as well. Right. So I do think that, like, but you're right, yeah, like the bottom end of their range is like much higher than what we see currently on prediction markets.
Yeah, I'll have to do my homework on kind of the entire situation brewing with the U.S. and Venezuela to better understand some of the context, but it'd be interesting to see how this kind of develops.
Yep, totally agree.
Okay, what's next, Matt?
Sweet. Kind of similar to the Pizza Watch, I wanted to share another site that kind of has a similar vibe to Pentagon Pizza Watch. Let me, I'll share it with audio. Why not? So there was a post made by Semantic Layer a few days ago about Profit Arena. So there was another project kind of similar to this, or a precursor to this. I'm forgetting the name of it though. Is it LM? Not. It wasn't LM Arena. There was another like stock trading or like finance like arena market for language models.
Alpha Arena.
Alpha Arena. Yeah, so many arenas. So Alpha Arena, for those who don't know, and maybe actually I'll share that later. We'll start with Semantic Layer, what they've built, since this is pretty cool. So what they are doing is on Base, they have built this platform where you can have language models, where they'll have language models compete against each other within prediction markets. And they each start, I believe, with like a $10,000 budget, and will make predictions over time. So the goal is to see which language model might actually be the best at coming up with predictions on their own. So this is a little preview of what they're doing, but no, let's actually see what it looks like on the site. Let me unmute this tab so you can kind of hear some of the music. I'm not sure if you hear any of that, Josiah, but if not.
Oh, you got to share the other tab, I think.
Oh, that's what I got to do first. There it is. Okay. So it's actually a really fun interface, clicking around things. There's a lot of, fun little sounds that are made. Maybe that might get annoying after a while. But on the right-hand side, you'll see a README that shows what this is all about, what the goal is, and some other like parameters that are within here. So it looks like each model starts with around $10,000 of on-chain portfolio. They scan Polymarket for edges. They use the X402 protocol, which is actually created by Coinbase, where people can submit payments. I'm not going to pretend like I know exactly like the technicals of how this works, but the idea is that there's less friction in submitting payments, kind of similar to how like data transfers over like an HTTP protocol. Instead, it's like actual money, so they're able to like.
Yeah, I've heard of this. It's like you can send stable coins. In some protocol call or effectively like alongside an API call. Just and pay for whatever. So I guess they're literally placing their trades that way, presumably.
Yeah. Definitely. And it looks like you could see each one of them trading. So let's actually go back to the main.
So you have ChatGPT, Grok, Claude, DeepSeek, and Gemini competing against each other in the prediction markets. This has got to be the most 2025 thing to have ever happened, right? Here are the 5 leading large language models duking it out to make the highest return on prediction markets, and they're all losing.
They're all losing, so there's hope for you, human, to do well on these prediction markets. Also, when you said that sentence, it made me realize, like, I think if you showed me this 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I'd be like, what the hell is going on here?
Right.
It's crazy how far we've come.
Yeah, brand new sentence. None of those things existed just a few years ago. But so it's fascinating to me that they're all losing. Can we look at their trade histories? Like, can we look at?
I think we can. So right here on their trade histories, you can see GPT just placed a bet a minute ago. Will Wicked for Good be the top grossing movie of 2025? They bought 100 shares saying yes, but they sold.
They sold yes for Wicked to be the highest grossing movie. What are you doing, GPT? This is a terrible move.
At 14 says the yes side seems rich versus true odds given a heavy December slate. Avatar 3's mid-December launch can rack up enormous 2025 count. We can actually see details about this too. Liquidity is healthy, no hard risk triggers, but de-risking now preserves capital while keeping the smaller upside stub. I mean, to be fair, ChatGPT has been performing better than all the other models.
Yeah, so, I was not prepared for it to actually be making a real case in its description there of like, oh, Avatar 3 comes out in mid-December, and it basically just wants the long shot exposure of taking the no on Wicked to be the highest grossing movie. That's very interesting.
Yeah, we can actually see. We probably can see their other positions too.
Yeah, interesting. So for real, there is an Avatar 3 dropping in mid-December. Huh.
Their biggest position, ChatGPT has will Donald Trump rank in Google's top 5 most searched people of 2025. They have, yes, they fell for the trap. They fell for
That's my counterparty, baby. That's my counterparty.
That's ChatGPT is your counterparty.
They're buying. So yeah. So ChatGPT in trading will Donald Trump rank in Google's top 5 most searched people of 2025? Presumably, although see if you can find their reasoning for it. I would guess they have not gone to the Google Trends data methodology website and observed the fact that this is year over year, search volume growth.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't look like I can actually find this specific trade here. Maybe you can, and I don't know how to use this site, but there's probably some details page somewhere. Let's see Gemini.
I wonder, do these things have like tool calling access to like perform independent research, or are they literally just reasoning about the headline?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It doesn't look like they actually have a lot of details as to like what they have access to, what their prompts are. Yeah, not sure.
Although for GPT to know that Avatar 3 is coming out in mid-December, I would guess that they do have some kind of web access, for real time.
Oh, look at this. Somehow oh, this is the market. It also fell for this market. We talked about this one too.
So Grok our topics. Or will Jesus Christ return before GTA 6?
So I think something we should message the semantic layer team is that you need to have your models read the rules, because literally the two.
Wait, go back to trade history, because I think that trade, their explanation was in trade history. If you scroll down a little bit, keep going.
Here it is.
Yeah, so there's Grok's buy for Jesus Christ returning before GTA 6. Market on Jesus Christ return before GTA 6 released by July 2026. So it does have a little bit of the nuance, right? There's no release, but likely soon given Rockstar's timeline. Probably GTA before deadline. But so it must not realize that Rockstar recently commented on this and said that they're pushing it back, right?
Maybe. But I think, wait, did you read? I don't think I see anything that's saying that because this market's the one that resolves to 50-50.
Right.
So like if the before GTA 6 stuff, so if GTA 6 gets delayed, then everything resolves to 50-50. They're buying no that Jesus Christ will not return, and hoping to capture something there. So it's probably confused right now.
Right
now. So let's see let's see outcome side. Yeah, price 52 cents. Well, actually, if it resolves to 50-50, so maybe that is actually a good trade.
Yeah. What does it say in its reasoning? Downside limited to delay probability, approximately 25% chance of 50-50.
Oh, no, it does know. Yeah, that's still profit potential.
But it's saying that there's a 25% chance of 50-50. But my understanding is like the publisher of the game has already said that the game's not coming out until end of summer. So, like you're trading this for 2 cents.
Sorry, Grok.
Or I guess I think the reasoning that there's a 25% chance of 50-50 isn't fully thought through.
Yeah. But yeah, pretty fun stuff. I'm excited to see what this is. And what I would like to see for anyone watching who works at either Polymarket or Kalshi or any other prediction market is please create a market for 42 Profit Arena to say which model is going to come out on top at the end of the year. I would love to participate in that.
Imagine if Polymarket launched a market for which LLM will perform the best trading and prediction markets, and the LLMs then traded on themselves or another LLM.
It becomes circular.
Is there a conflict of interest there?
I am the best model.
Right. It'd be so funny. So Grok is Grok losing, or which one was losing?
Gemini.
So imagine if Gemini literally took a no bet on itself because it is literally losing and can observe that it is losing.
It's just like, I am not good. What is the meme with Microsoft's LLM? I'm a good Bing.
I'm a good Bing. I don't know that meme.
Oh, I'll tell you that one later. Yeah. So it's a whole thing. It was like the response from Bing, it just kind of like lost its mind and was trying to justify why it's a good language model and being like, I'm not bad. I'm a good Bing. Or something like that. Yeah. I got to share it with you later. Cool. Well, that's it for me. Profit Arena. Check it out. Really fun. Just that. You got anything for us?
Let's see here. That might be it for today. We could talk about the New York Times OpenAI lawsuit really quickly.
Yeah,
I think we'll have to do a deeper dive into this at a later date. But I'll just go ahead and pull up the Kalshi market. The New York Times wins the OpenAI lawsuit. How much do you know about this lawsuit, Matt?
Not much at all. So any information would be great.
Okay, I have for you what I think is the best and also a fairly high conviction source. And this is something I've noticed is that like there are markets for these things, and then there are experts on Twitter who are basically just giving their expert opinion. Like this woman is a general counsel and chief legal officer, right? Kind of chiming in on the thing. And so as prediction market traders, there is alpha, I think, in finding those takes. This is a little bit old. This is from literally when the lawsuit was filed in 2023. But I think it gives us a good breakdown of what the lawsuit is. TLDR, it's the best case. This is at Cecilia Zinn, by the way. See if we can get her on the pod to talk about the likelihood of who's going to win this. It's the best case yet, alleging that generative AI is copyright infringement. So I went a little bit deep on this, or really Cecilia went deep on this. And this is maybe the most interesting part. The complaint clearly lays out the claim of copyright infringement, highlighting the access and substantial similarity between New York Times articles and ChatGPT's outputs. Key fact, the New York Times is the single biggest proprietary data set in Common Crawl. I guess is like an open source, snapshot of the web, if you will, that many of the major LLMs train on. And Common Crawl themselves, share on a tokens basis their largest sources, and the fourth largest source is the NewYorkTimes.com. Part of the here, I'll just keep walking us through the thread because she covers all of this. The visual evidence of copywriting in the complaint is stark. Copied text in red, new GPT words in black. So on the left is an output from GPT in response to a user's query. On the right is the actual text of a New York Times article. And of course, this kind of leads us back to the copyright claim. And I think she'll talk in a minute about what the specific claims are. New York Times is a great plaintiff. It isn't just about articles. It's about originality and the creative process. Their investigative journalism goes beyond mere labor. It's creativity at its core. Copyright protects creativity, not effort. While the Taxi article's 600 interviews are impressive, it's the innovation and reporting that matters legally. By the way, this is a very sharp contrast with the suit against GitHub Copilot, which cited only a few lines of code. Failed negotiations suggest damages for New York Times. OpenAI is already licensed from other media outlets like Politico. So that is interesting. Like OpenAI has actually sought licenses with other, major publishers in order to train on their actual content. OpenAI's refusal to strike a deal with the New York Times may prove costly, especially as OpenAI's profits grow and more examples happen. Yada yada. The complaint.
Thanks, Anna. I appreciate it.
OpenAI is a profit-driven and closed. It contrasts this with the public good of journalism. Misinformation allegations. The case could be a watershed moment for AI and copyright. So this is at least a good outline of it. And then I'll show you what the specific claims are. Like
and also thanks, Anna, for commenting. Appreciate it.
Let's bring up Anna's comment. Gonna have to go to the start. Yes, absolutely. We will post the VODs for these for sure on YouTube and X as well. So the market for this resolves. This is interesting. On any of the counts alleged by the Times. So if I check my notes here, the counts alleged by the Times.
Oh, there's actually at the bottom the decoding the market. I didn't ever seen that before.
Right, that's new. That's some new shit. This is some AI shit right here. The New York Times has a solid case against Microsoft and OpenAI. Not only was their content used to train, what did I just do? Not only was their content used to train ChatGPT without permission, but the chatbot has been known to regurgitate passing websites owned by the Times verbatim. As a result, competitors can now use a chatbot that takes copyrighted content. Case against the New York Times is not likely to win for several reasons. This is obviously like an LLM just being fed the market. The most obvious is that OpenAI is protected under fair use. So that is the defense, is that it's fair use, which allows for the use of copyrighted content without permission under certain circumstances. The most relevant being reporting, scholarship, and research. Both parties have an interest in settling this matter out of court. So that's interesting because there's a separate Kalshi market for will they settle. And I'll let you take a stab at what the odds in that are, Matt. But quickly, what stood out to me about this one is if any of the accounts alleged by the Times are ruled in favor of the New York Times, then this resolves in favor of the New York Times. So I kind of think what we often see with this kind of lawsuit, where there's like 5 or 6 different allegations with hundreds or thousands of counts of each allegation is, sometimes the judge will, even like in the Google case with Chrome, the judge will rule partly kind of in the favor of it. They make a ruling on each of the allegations. And so all the New York Times has to do is win on whatever their strongest allegation is. See if I can find, I asked Grok to summarize exactly what those claims are. Here it is. So these are like the actual claims: direct copyright infringement, contributory copyright infringement, vicarious copyright infringement, yada, 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 yada. I think I asked it like so I asked it, which of these counts is it most likely to win on? And it said direct copyright infringement is the count that it is most likely to win on, and then kind of outlined part of the argument there. But the point kind of being like, in comparison to other counts, right? So like counts 1 through 3, core infringement, there's a strong argument, if you will, for OpenAI to win these ones, blah, 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 blah. But count 4 in particular, which is just the direct copyright infringement, seems to be their strongest. And so I don't know. I think the market is pretty confused by this, trading at 50-50. And it's also possible this just gets delayed, dragged out. But there was a little bit of movement in this like about a week ago where, it at least popped up to like close to 60% and then kind of shattered down. And that was in response to a judge's ruling around entering, I think, users' chats into evidence to show instances of this kind of like blatant copyright infringement. And that is why Sam Altman and OpenAI are making this stand for user privacy, and kind of like really making a big deal about this question of whether or not they should have to turn over chats as part of this. And I think they lost this fight, and they were making like a public appeal, of like, this is a huge privacy invasion. And the market moved, I think, in response to them kind of losing that appeal. Although it's come back down since then. So
yeah, I think the sudden jagged movements just means that like I feel like there's just like not enough liquidity yet. But surprising that there's not that much liquidity. I feel like this could be one of those markets like getting closer to the end of the day, you start seeing like a lot of chaos. But you had asked me before, taking a shot at guessing what the market would be for them settling. I'm going to say that it is higher than winning the lawsuit, so I'm going to give it a 60.
Why do you think it's higher?
Why do I think it's higher? I actually don't have a good reason, honestly. I just would assume that like settling out of court versus like kind of seeing it to the end is a bit less friction. There's like kind of a lot more freedom to do it. I could be wrong about that though. I'm not very knowledgeable about these kinds of cases. So I'd assume that settling would probably be like a faster option than kind of like seeing it through, gathering all the evidence, making the claims. It's just really expensive.
Right.
But then again, I guess OpenAI has the money to do it. And like New York Times, I don't know. I think it would just be a very expensive fight to like drag it out to the end. So I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to settle.
Right. I think your instinct is probably correct, which is that in a lot of,
I say 64. I haven't looked it up. I have no idea.
Right. I'm about to show you, but certainly in a lot of cases like this, you would expect that there is usually some kind of settlement, right? Like the thing probably gets dragged on for years, and then everyone's kind of sick of it. Everyone spent so much money on legal. The reason I would argue, and I'm biased because I've already seen the number, but why I would argue that it's maybe unlikely that they'll settle is because this is being seen and reported on as like this, real threshold lawsuit of like somebody is making a stance against the fact that OpenAI basically, trains on the entire open web. This is the claim. I'll say this is a claim. I won't say this is necessarily my personal opinion, but the observation would be they train an AI using everyone's content, every independent artist who ever posted a thing on Instagram. Like, remember when the CTO was in a kind of awkward interview of needing to answer whether or not they trained on publicly available personal Instagram stories, and is like, If it's on the open web, it's on the open web. They scrape the corpus of human knowledge and all of like humanity's artistic output, artistic creation, and then they sell it back to you effectively in the form of, you know, a chatbot, which, don't get me wrong, I mean, the thing's worth way more than $20 a month to me. Like I'm a big fan. But that being the criticism, and then add into that, I think the growing disdain that the average person has for AI. Like there is some pushback, I think, that's just now emerging. You're seeing data center projects in different cities be canceled as people realize, like, wait, we're giving all of our drinking water to AI, or we're compromising our electricity prices just to like plug in the data centers. And then meanwhile, like our social feeds are just being filled with slop. So there's this kind of like growing push, and we're all losing our jobs to AI. Like there's plenty of kind of like AI disdain, I think, that I actually think will be, as a macro prediction, I think that will be a much bigger thing in 2026, right? I feel like there's going to be much more kind of anti-AI coalitions and even political movements, blah, blah, blah. And the New York Times, I think, in this lawsuit is sort of positioning themselves as like the everyman hero of, like, you know, they're the ones making the stance against kind of at least having trained on everyone else's data. The flip side of this, to make the other case, is like, if a lawyer is looking at this, or a lawyer or a judge rather, or a jury, I don't know exactly what how it kind of gets determined in the end, but they're thinking about AI as, you know, being important to national security. They're thinking about, you know, I mean, AI now propping up the entire American economy, or maybe the global economy. Like they're just thinking about the implications of, okay, if you actually rule in the New York Times' favor on every single one of these counts, I think what the New York Times is seeking is that any LLM that was trained on their data has to be shut down. I think that's part of like the initial claim. So it's like, okay, well, how would that even happen? You know, it's kind of like, wait, how can you really put the thing back in the bag? Like, can you put the thing back in the bottle? So it's almost just like, is it impractical? You know? Okay, with that said, I will reveal to you, it is 17%.
Oh my God, I was so off.
Settles. There's almost no volume in this market, though.
Okay.
Right? Like very little volume. See if it's moved around before. This, I guess, I wonder what happened here, where it spiked to, you know, nearly 60%.
Maybe that was me, and I just don't want to admit it.
And then it fell to 2%. I think this is more just, you know, a sign of how low volume the market is. See if there's any comments. There's an easy deal template to be solved with the New York Times, which is that made between the New York Times and Amazon. I find it unlikely that OpenAI allows their IP and consumer privacy to be violated in discovery. But this, I think, has already been ruled on. Like, I think that already the case that the chat logs will be hit.
I mean, this comment was made in July, so I think maybe it was between then.
Right, totally. Yeah.
And also, I love the reply. How much did you bet? I want to know so I could tail.
Yeah. I think the reason these markets are so low volume is because people probably do realize that this is just going to get pushed out and pushed out and pushed out and delayed or whatever. And like, do you want to tie up your capital in, you know, a 50-50 prediction market that likely won't resolve for, like, could be years? I don't know.
No, definitely. Very curious to see how that plays out. Yeah, I'm realizing, my prior for thinking of when it was going to settle is just like totally off, but that's okay.
No, I don't know that it is totally off. I mean, the market could also be wrong. I guess the counter argument I'm making is basically that New York Times has a sense of pride, or a sense of responsibility, we could say, and that they're building some sort of almost like brand value in taking a stand on this issue. But it's not like the commenter is pointing out that the New York Times and Amazon settled some lawsuit, probably within, you know, recent years or something. So
yeah, could be a big boost for the New York Times. Maybe OpenAI is just like, okay, yeah, we did, but, you know, just here's something to hold you over that. But yeah, cool. Maybe I'll participate in those markets.
Should we look at new markets quickly before wrapping the show, or should we just wrap right there?
Maybe we talk about Polymarket going live in the US.
Yeah, or did you want to talk about the will Trump pardon market?
Oh, you mean Trump pardoning Gobble?
Which turkey will Trump pardon? So did Trump only pardon
Hold on,
one
before we get
turkey?
started, what's it called? We got an opinion here. Appreciate the pod. In my opinion, OpenAI will settle eventually. I'm sure in filings, New York Times say they want to shut them down, but the OpenAI is a huge payday for them. See, that's kind of what I was thinking too when first like thinking about settling and stuff. But I'm not entirely sure. It's good to hear that there's another.
Right.
We have a viewer who also feels the same way. So
I almost think the way to really think through this market would be to look at the New York Times financials. If they're probably, I don't know if the New York Times is
there could be like some kind of transparency for
there's
journalists.
probably some kind of transparency. Yeah. Oh, it trades on the New York Stock Exchange. So New York Times is a publicly traded company. So you can probably look at their financials, make some estimates around how many lawyers they have working on this thing and what the billable hours look like. Make some estimates, look at some historic cases kind of that do get dragged out and make some sort of estimate of like how long can they afford the fight, if you will. Yeah, and then I don't know. Yeah, what would the settlement even be?
I had no idea that the New York Times was publicly traded. That kind of makes me feel a little. I don't know. It has raised a lot of questions actually, but yeah, I definitely would like to do that research.
So, explain what happened here, Matt, because I totally missed this.
I mean, I pretty much missed it as well. I didn't realize that. Okay, Gobble did resolve. All right, yeah. So I mean, all I saw literally, I woke up today, and I was scrolling Twitter, and I just saw. Or did I wake up, or was it in the middle of the day? I don't know. At some point in the day, I see Trump pardoning a turkey named Gobble. And I guess there was two turkeys, Waddle and Gobble. I don't know the history behind this, so if anyone watching does, please chime in. But Trump pardoned one of them.
Here's Trump.
Roll the clip. Let's roll the clip.
Roll the clip. Roll the clip.
You are hereby unconditionally pardoned.
It's Gobble. It's Gobble that was pardoned. I'm wondering.
Should we do a live ask of a language model? Why did Gobble get pardoned and not? And not Waddle?
Let's do it. Or actually, what I would love to ask it is, what is the history of presidents pardoning turkey on Thanksgiving?
Searching turkey pardon details.
I mean, Trump obviously has an affinity for the pardon power, so it probably was a somewhat obvious bet to bet that at least one of the two turkeys would be pardoned. I probably would have bet that both would be pardoned.
Yeah. What the? I had Gemini think for like a minute and was just like, actually, both turkeys, Gobble and Waddle, were pardoned, but Gobble received the primary spotlight during the ceremony. I don't know if that's right, but and it looks like it started by Abraham Lincoln. Well,
but did he pardon?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, would you re-pardon the turkey?
He spared one at his request, though it was not a formal pardon or tied to Thanksgiving.
Okay, so this might be the first time an animal has been pardoned. This goes to show how little the Three Markets podcast knows about presidential history, U.S. presidential history, but we're learning together.
Did Biden pardon the turkey? I don't think he's the first one. I don't think he's the first one to ever pardon the turkey on Thanksgiving Day.
Okay.
Look, he pardoned like
peanut butter and jelly.
10 turkeys, man.
Wow, he pardoned a lot of turkeys.
Biden often incorporated dad jokes and puns into the events, such as quipping about no foul play. Okay, did Trump?
Why they're upset? They're like, first Peach and Blossom, now Hunter Biden. I mean, I'd be upset too, I guess.
Did Trump pardon in his first term? He spared two turkeys each time.
Peas and carrots.
I
butter.
wonder if he did spare. Let's go back to the market really quick. First of all, it's interesting to realize, like, actually, yeah, the leading outcome here was both turkeys for a little while.
Look at what Anna posted, according to Trump, Biden's turkey pardons were invalid. That's the clip I saw. I could totally see him saying that.
LOL. Yeah, that's pretty funny. So look, okay, so I don't know. Something happened, bro. We need to be paying way closer attention because Waddle absolutely spiked here. Even though the video we just watched was Gobble being pardoned, and then both. All right, we don't even have Gobble on here. Let's get Gobble on here. Oh, okay. Sorry, Gobble was 100% pardoned.
There was a cross here. It was as if they were like head to head.
Right.
This looks like a sports prediction market. This looks like a Monday Night Football of the 49ers against the Panthers.
Right. You can only imagine
this
is 100% the moment that like they brought the two turkeys out and Trump turned to address Waddle and not Gobble. Right? Like let's also check out the
I lost. Please dispute immediately.
Trump pardoned both. Ceremonial pardon was only for Gobble during the turkey pardon event. And this is stated
prediction market trader in here says Gobble was an absolute lock. You know, I did see one of your tweets earlier, and I was so confused by what the hell was happening on my feed. But this just goes to show how familiar I am with.
Right, not a turkey pardoning subject matter expert ourselves here. I am surprised there wasn't a dispute. Like maybe Predem Trader can tell us what happened right around here, or was this just maybe this was the instance where Waddle was pardoned but not in the ceremony, which was not stated in the rules. Because both Waddle and both turkeys both spike right around here, and Gobble suddenly falls off.
Levitt announced that Gobble was selected like 30 minutes before the Trump speech. That'll do it.
30 minutes.
So what the hell happened to Waddle? Is Waddle just dead? Like,
right.
Are they eating Waddle and they pardon Gobble?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Back to movers. Let's see what's moving. Oh, this is a market we were gonna cover this week. I think we'll have to cover. Well, you had thoughts on this one, right, Matthew?
Oh yes, we were gonna cover this, and I did have thoughts on this. Both got pardoned. Okay, I see. But Waddle doesn't get ceremonially. Okay,
ceremony, which apparently is specified in the rules. Yes, thank you, Predem Trader, for that.
Wow.
Folks should definitely check out Predem Trader's live streams. We're fans ourselves.
Yes, for those on YouTube who are not on X, go check out.
Man, dude, we'll have him on the pod sometime.
Yeah, definitely.
So there was a Three Markets listener who commented on the stream last week or the week before and had built like a pretty sophisticated model, I think, for predicting TSA traveler numbers for any given week. And we're trying to get him on. So I think that this market is a recurring market that happens every week. So maybe
should we just pull up their thread to kind of like preview some of what they were saying?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Let me dig that up here.
But yeah, well, just as I was looking that up, there's a few markets of these, and I think the one that I spotted at the time was, will more people travel on Thanksgiving than last year? Thanksgiving obviously not falling on all of the same days. So versus like this market being, will TSA travelers, will there be more than 3.1 million TSA travelers on any day between November 23rd and 30th? Seems to be completely different, but interesting that this is at a 41% chance. We need to see like how many people travel on Thanksgiving Day in particular last year for the other one.
Right. It's the TSA market, I think, is especially interesting in the week of Thanksgiving, And this guy at Froglucker, who again I think will come on next week and walk us through his model. So I won't butcher his methodology. But ran a Monte Carlo on passenger totals using 3-year comps, 2024 baseline, FAA cut distribution, and uncertainty bands around growth plus ops drag. Here's what the numbers say: 20 to 22 mil dominates TSA Thanksgiving week market. Let me pull up the market. At the moment, 20 to 22 mil does indeed dominate. Good call. You're trading at like 75-ish% likelihood. Do you know where to look for the report for this? I guess here it is, passenger volumes.
Yes. And I actually had some notes on this from a previous episode that I should probably dig up.
They're literally putting it out daily.
Yeah, the TSA is putting it out daily, and I think they're those. So usually, for those who are first-time listeners or coming on in, usually when we look at any of these markets, the first thing that you want to look for is some sort of proxy that will help, give you an idea of what's going on if the data source that you have isn't being published daily, or if it's not as it's not as data rich. So for like this one, for example, with people traveling on Thanksgiving this year, there's like other data sources like AAA, for example. They have a forecast as to like how many people are going to be traveling for the holidays. And you can use that to kind of compare with like what historical TSA travel numbers will be.
Really?
And take a more like quantitative approach to say like, okay, we have other data sources that are, forecasting this thing. Yeah, so you could look at, if you scroll down, it should be one of the first links, not this one, but the newsroom. Yeah. So here they'll kind of have like a breakdown of like, okay, here's what travel numbers look like for driving and flying.
This year's domestic travel forecast includes an additional 1.6 million travelers compared to last Thanksgiving, setting a new overall record. Sorry, going with the methodology bit, Matt.
No, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it. So like so like having some of these sources to kind of like compare and maybe do some historical comparison could help. You could take a purely quantitative approach that way, maybe do some hybrid like quantitative. Sorry, I keep saying quantitative. I meant subcategories of quantitative forecasting, being either Bayesian or frequentist, looking at historical data being the frequentist approach, and then maybe throwing in some Bayesian priors or like likelihood measurements.
I feel like what you should model, I think, is okay, they're releasing the numbers daily. I wonder what the historical uptick is in terms of like, okay, what day in advance of Thanksgiving do people travel, right? Like I'm traveling to Thanksgiving on Wednesday. Some people will travel on Thursday. Some people have likely already traveled. Although I don't know, if you're leaving on Tuesday, you're heading to Thanksgiving pretty early. You're going to be there all weekend. How much time do you want to be there? But I would be curious, like, is it the kind of Thanksgiving minus 1 day? What's the typical bump from kind of earlier in the week? Like, it's interesting that today was actually lower than yesterday, than Monday.
Yeah.
And then use that to kind of, because I would almost guess that the market right now is trading as if, I don't know, as if this pattern is just perfectly, I don't know, I guess, if it's pricing in the likelihood of being, the 1 or 2 days leading up to Thanksgiving. And then knowing what you pointed out from AAA, that it's supposed to be a record-setting year,
Yeah, definitely. Costco's mentioned, I exited this market earlier today, but looks like I should have held now. I mean, I'm not sure. Yeah, so right now, both Josiah and I are just kind of like reasoning about this market. Neither of us have a position. I don't think you have a position in it, do you?
No.
Okay. So yeah, we're just kind of like more reasoning about it. It was just like interesting to take a peek at. I don't have much of an edge here because I haven't done the homework to like dig deep into it, but I thought I'd bring it up given that it's going to be Turkey Day.
Yeah, and we'll bring on this this viewer, Mr. at Frog Lucker, to chat more about his model. Like, I had asked a few questions. I think he shared this with us. Where is it at? I specifically asked about like the day of the week that Thanksgiving falls on. Or sorry, not the day of the week, because it is always Thursday, but the day of the month when looking at like historical data. I don't know where it is now. Or here it was. I like asked Grok or one of the LLMs for the real occurrences in terms of like day of the month, because Thanksgiving's a little all over the map. I think it's always like whatever, the third Thursday. But there's a normal distribution between the 22nd and the 28th of exactly what day it's on. And then I was asking him about light affordability and like layering that into the model. Like, I mean, maybe more people are driving than flying just because.
Yeah. And that's where the AAA data comes in, because like, for example, they have probably richer data on like driving, and they have like certain heuristics of like people driving more than 50 miles. That's like their threshold for looking at like holiday travel. Like there's a lot of data sources you could like factor into here. The other thing that I didn't think of when first looking at this, but I'm thinking of now, is that maybe as these markets get more liquid, especially ones around like, cases of the flu throughout the year, or like egg prices, like there's a lot of like economy markets that you could probably use as some of your priors for like a guesstimate model or something to say like, how will all of these factor into your final prediction of how many people are going to be traveling to.
This would be a good one to build out on guesstimate.
Yeah. Do you actually want to show guesstimate right now, just for like 2 seconds? I mean, we're not going to build anything, but I think it's like a fun thing to share with folks.
Oh, here's guesstimate. Do you want to explain what this is, Matt?
Yeah. So guesstimate is kind of like a super powered spreadsheet. The idea is that when you can kind of create these cells that will have distributions of whatever it is that you want. So in this case, in this example, they have 3 different parameters, one of them, or 2 parameters, one of them being, if you could kind of go back in the video a little bit to show like the different cells. Yeah, so like in this case, they're trying to predict
total time spent watching this video.
Yeah, time spent watching this video. So they'll have 2 different distributions, one being video length, one being viewers, and looks like the middle video length is following a normal distribution, while viewers is following some kind of other like binomial distribution. Then what you do is like you put in those values, and it'll run the Monte Carlo simulations like for you, just to kind of give you a good sense of what's going on. And this is a perfect place to do like to practice like Fermi estimation, which we've talked about in a few episodes in the past. So if you have like different parameters that you're interested in like factoring into your prediction, you can use this to kind of help out with that. And a lot of it is honestly, you could be very quantitative with it and have like informed priors by having distributions that like come from data, or you just stack on vibes.
This is like a good example one. How many buttons does a developer push per day? Developer typing speed. So yeah, the inputs to the model are developer typing speed in words per minute, percentage of developers' time spent typing, developer hours per day. Like it makes sense that these would be the inputs. Words per minute during development.
If you click the cog on one of them, you could also see more details about it. So if you do expand, perfect. So here it looks like this is the distribution they created was between, like I think the developer typing speed is between 40 and like 70. And it creates this normal distribution of possible values between the range of 40 and 70 with a 95% confidence interval. And it gives you some value 55. And you could change the distribution from being normal to log normal and uniform, depending on like the shape of what you think your data should look like. And I think I've promised on every episode, but I've yet to fulfill it, that we will one day dedicate an episode of looking at a market, thinking of priors that go into that market, using guesstimate or some sort of like, like Bayesian estimator, making a prediction and seeing how it goes. I think it actually would be fun to do as a community thing. To say like, let's all like kind of work together on figuring out a prediction for something. I think it'd be great.
Yeah, we should build some of these out live as models for actual markets that are trading. The TSA one is such a good example just because there are so many inputs that you could have. Like, I mean, you could be real time feeding in, the TSA checkpoint travel numbers on a daily basis and having that adjust, right, the priors of whatever the range was that you kind of previously estimated, right? It's like, it's almost another input to the model. Is like, okay, well, what was it actually yesterday? And then it's refreshing every day.
You could probably look at random things like Uber surge pricing to airports and stuff to see if there's going to be like, I'd probably look at, I don't know. Yeah, just general traffic data going to and from airports. I'd probably look at maybe even satellite imagery if you have like, there's some paid sources that you can pay for like satellite imagery of like certain areas. I don't know if delays are a good indicator. There's all sorts of things. No, not available. Rip. Probably some kind of
there's got to be sort of proxies of this. You could probably even look at the price of. I think for a lot of people there is a coin flip of whether to thrive to their Thanksgiving, or maybe not for a lot of people. We would have to put some sort of range on that number. But then literally looking at like available inventory at your Avis and your what are the other
Yeah.
rental car agencies to kind of make an estimate about whether or not more people are driving this year than on average.
Yeah. I would assume that if rental cars, I feel like rental cars are probably really are correlated with the TSA numbers. I mean, I guess correlation doesn't imply causation, but yeah, there's lots of other signals that you can use. And one day we'll pick a market to do that. We probably should pick a long-term market. Actually, you mentioned midterms being being one, so maybe we see as those markets spin up, we can.
Right. And the really interesting thing probably would be to input other markets where relevant as inputs to the guesstimate model. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but like with the midterms, there are markets that I think will influence, like will Trump send out a tariff stimmy check by August 2026, which is a Kalshi market right now. Feels like it would obviously then impact the model of kind of like how do midterms shake out. Will Trump pardon gobble or wobble? What influence will that have on the median midterm voter?
Honestly, butterfly effect. The fact that Waddle wasn't pardoned is spelling doom.
Dude, I was gonna show you
this.
Let me see if I can find it really quick. Well, okay, first of all, you'll just find this cool. And I swear I freaking had this idea, bro, forever ago, and I told you about this idea. But this is...
Oh, you did.
Did I send you this?
No, you never sent me this.
This guy did it, and he did it so well. He did it so well, which is like, yeah, I mean, there's subreddits and stuff, I think, where people, do this. They propose fantasy subway and metro routes for their city or their metro area. And he did it super well in that, yes, it's a game. You can share, your map, but it's using, census data, and redistrictor is what I really want to show you, but I'll show you in a sec. Realistic construction challenges, right? Like this is truly a sim. This is like a real world valuable sim of like as much real world data as we can find. And then it lets you, build your subway there's a ton of cities. Which cities are included?
I gotta try New York.
Of course, absolutely. The New York is the final boss, I think, of the entire game. But what thing, and then the reason I bring that up is because the same builder who built this, I think his main project is this, which is called Redistrictor, and this is just a really good. The New York Times has their own version of this, but it's election. What do you call it? Results map. I'm sure there's a more official term. For every district, like all the way down to the nuance, and on the right there for block groups, you can see the shift for whatever parameter you want to put in there. So we're getting like, oh shit, sorry, I'm not sharing the right tab here. This is it. This is the product.
Oh geez, nice.
So like the demo is just Oklahoma, but on the right, as I select a district, like you're literally getting the shift from, for all these different demos for whichever, like the 2012 presidential, the 2016 presidential, the 2020 presidential. What would be fun to do for the midterms would be to use a tool like this to basically model out, like, we could look at the presidential or we could look at the midterms, but, make some estimates around kind of, socioeconomic conditions that will like, how it plays out in individual districts.
Definitely.
Like what a data rich tool this is, dude. Like
very cool. Yeah, I like this a lot.
Yeah.
Now I want a tool like this, but for egg prices.
Right. Straight up. Deadass. Yeah, that's where we're headed, dude. That's where we're headed. Is the dashboard for egg prices.
Give me one of these. This is how you know that we've gone longer than our normal recordings when we circle back to egg prices. But thank you for sharing that. That's actually a really cool data source. I gotta dig into that.
Okay, shall we leave it there, Matt?
I think we should. Sweet. Yeah, thanks everyone for watching. I hope everyone has a good Turkey Day, Thanksgiving, if you celebrate. If not, just hope you have a great rest of your week. And if anyone has any recommendations for markets or anything that we could talk about, let us know. But if not, don't worry. We have plenty that we can dig up and talk about. Just wanted to extend that option.
Yeah, and if you're a prediction market trader or an analyst yourself, and you have a high conviction thesis or a tooling that you use or something, DM us. And always looking for interesting folks to have on the stream.
Or if you want to debate people, we've hosted a debate as well. We're kind of up for anything. So Yeah.
Totally.
GGs.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Follow on Twitter. Follow on YouTube. Smash the like button. We've never said that before. Smash the like button.
Now we're on
And,
episode 10. Now we have to show.
Right. Totally. Yeah. We're so close to monetization, bro. It's right around the corner. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.